Oh yes, once again, one of Trump's boys is in deep doo-doo for being what? Oh, I don't know. How about incompetent? I'm going to show you that breaking story in just a few seconds because it only takes an actual real problem that happens for your incompetence that we all knew about to be terrifically exposed. And that's the basis for this story. There's a reason why in our lives there are certain positions in our government that we don't try to politicize, that we don't care about someone's and never have cared who they voted for. But in Trump's world, everything always matters because if you aren't full Trump and full MAGA, you can't be around. And the people who are going to lose that fight is the American people because of the difficulties it will cost us in a real problem time, kind of like the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Again, show you the story in a few seconds. But let's take a quick listen to what has been said and was previously said about Kash Patel, director of the FBI. This.
Especially when you consider that his nomination, Kash Patel, is an individual who's distinguished mainly by his absolutely 120% slavish loyalty to Donald Trump. So it's pretty clear what he's trying to do here, which is to get his guy in to our domestic federal police force. That I'll leave it to you to recount what Kash Patel says he would do with such power in terms of an enemies list and all that kind of stuff.
Kash Patel has made it clear he wants to gut the FBI, use its agents to attack Trump's rivals, even the media.
Oh, wait, there's more.
We just sent a letter over to the Senate Judiciary Committee, Chairman Grassley and Ranking Member Durbin, asking them and the other committee members to vote against Mr. Patel for FBI Director. In my view, he is probably the most unqualified candidate for the FBI directorship that I've ever seen.
And most recently, as Patel decimates the FBI to get anyone out that isn't a Trump sycophant, this.
A new and explosive lawsuit against FBI Director Kash Patel filed by former FBI executives. That lawsuit alleges Patel knowingly broke the law when he carried out the firings at the behest of the White House. And it quotes him as saying he knew he could get sued for firing agents without cause, but that his job depended on removing people who had worked on cases against President Trump because, quote, the FBI tried to put the president in jail and he hasn't forgotten it. Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delanian.
Well, the most striking thing about this stunning lawsuit is that it recounts alleged behind-the-scenes conversations with some of the biggest players in the Trump Justice Department.
So in this extraordinarily important breaking story, because of how Charlie Kirk was handled, let's take a look at how much Kash Patel is in deep hot water because of his incompetence. This story here. Breaking news in quotes, it's unacceptable. Inside growing concerns about Patel's FBI leadership. Stepping into the microphone at a news conference Friday morning in Utah, FBI Director Kash Patel wasted no time explaining what led to the capture of a suspect in the murder of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. In quotes, this is what happens when you let good cops be cops, Patel said. Over the next 6 minutes, Patel lauded the work of the FBI in leading the investigation into Wednesday's assassination and its coordination with state and local law enforcement, while also twice saying the decision to release photos and videos to the public, which led to the arrest of the suspect Tyler Robinson on Thursday evening, were all made at his direction. But Patel's upbeat tone contrasted with frustrations and anger, both inside and outside the FBI, over his handling of the most high-profile moment of his tenure so far. Some FBI employees told CNN they found it galling for Patel to claim personal credit for the most successful parts of the investigation. After all, it was Patel who had posted on Wednesday that, in quotes, a subject was in custody, a claim he had to walk back less than 2 hours later. Patel's style also struck the FBI employees as not in keeping with how previous FBI directors handled similar situations, normally trying to credit employees instead of themselves. Other FBI employees found it ironic that Patel thinks some of the Bureau's support staff key to the investigation, since he has overseen moves to decimate those ranks. Patel's response during the rapid-fire series of events surrounding Kirk's horrific murder has led some allies of President Donald Trump to question both publicly and privately whether he is equipped to handle the country's top law enforcement agency. A MAGA loyalist and member of the first Trump administration, Patel was controversial pick to lead the FBI from the start, with many Trump critics questioning whether he was qualified for the job. But now some of those concerns have begun seeping into conservative circles that Patel is a fixture of. Christopher Rufo, an influential right-wing activist and senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, a conservative think tank, posted on X Friday that it was, in quotes, quotes, time for Republicans to assess whether Kash Patel is the right man to run the FBI. We would be wise to take a moment and ask whether Kash Patel has what it takes to get this done, Rufo wrote. In quotes further, I've been on the phone the last few days with many conservative leaders, all of whom wholeheartedly support the Trump administration, and none of whom are confident that the current structure of the FBI is up to the task. Conservative commentator Eric Erickson responded in support of the sentiment. He's right. The FBI situation is concerning, he wrote on X. The criticism over Patel's action in the Kirk investigation isn't the first time Patel and his deputy Dan Bongino have faced blowback for their handling of a high-profile episode. The pair got into a spat with Attorney General Pam Bondi at the White House earlier this year over the handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files and the administration's about-face in its decision not to release all of the documents. An FBI official defended Patel to CNN, noting that the suspect was only eventually apprehended after a family member saw photos of him released by the FBI. The official also pointed out that the arrest of Robinson came quicker than other recent high-profile manhunts, including that of Luigi Mangione, who was on the run for 5 days after allegedly killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. In quotes, over these last few days, what has mattered isn't ignorant criticism or petty assumptions. It's been the pursuit of justice, said Erica Knight, a spokeswoman for Patel. Justice that was promised and justice that has now been delivered. There is no indication that Patel's job is at risk. A source familiar with the matter and Patel had spoken with the president after the arrest and noted that the president was pleased with the quick work. In quotes, the FBI is working with our law enforcement partners in Utah to bring justice to the individual allegedly responsible for the horrific murder of Charlie Kirk, the FBI said in a statement to CNN, and we will continue to be transparent with the American people with real-time updates as we're able. Initially, Patel's post that the subject for the horrific shooting was in custody prompted some White House officials to breathe a sigh of relief. After following the investigation closely and contacting every person who might have knowledge, sources told CNN they were pleasantly surprised the investigation was wrapping up so quickly. But as time dragged on without an update, some began to privately question whether Patel was absolutely certain that they had the suspect. Fears that were confirmed by Patel's follow-up clarification, in quotes. It's unacceptable, one source close to Kirk told CNN after Patel's backtrack. But shortly after the announcement of the arrest, Kirk's inner circle was thanking Patel and the FBI, in quotes, "Thank you, Kash, and thank you, Dan. You told us you wouldn't stop and you wouldn't sleep until you got him. You were men of your word." Andrew Colvett, Kirk's executive producer and spokesperson, posted on X. Then there was an expletive-ridden outburst. Patel's rush to social media, followed by an embarrassing walkback, only added to the intense pressure already bearing down on him as the hours stretched on after the shooting and no suspect was identified. A close personal friend of Kirk, Patel felt the weight personally and professionally, sources said. That pressure appeared to be on display a day later when Patel lashed out at agents during an intense and expletive-ridden virtual video meeting Thursday afternoon with FBI teams across the country, according to sources familiar with the matter. The episode was first reported by the New York Times and the Missteps compound, but criticism of the investigation handling went beyond Patel's social media gaffe. There was frustration from some officials who thought precious time was wasted the first day after the shooting, including by the FBI not immediately releasing images of the shooter to the public. While it's not necessarily unusual the agency held off, sources say the officials believe that the Bureau could have acted faster. On Thursday morning, the FBI released its first photos of a person of interest, which showed a man in sunglasses and a dark blue cap wearing a black t-shirt with a large American flag and bald eagle on the front walking up a stairwell. None of the bullet casings recovered alongside the gun appear to have been engraved with statements or symbols related to transgender people, despite earlier reports that they expressed transgender ideology. On Thursday evening, Patel and Bongino personally traveled to Utah and toured the scene of Kirk's assassination. The FBI director stood silently behind state officials as they played new security footage of the shooter fleeing that scene. Later that night, the suspect would be brought into custody. Robinson was identified by his father in FBI photos and confessed to his father when confronted, officials said. The next morning, the news was announced first by Trump during an appearance on Fox and Friends. I don't have much to say beyond this other than the guy should have never been confirmed in Trump-osphere, but the reality is, holy smokes, this was a single shooter who happened to be a U.S. citizen. But let's just imagine Kash Patel in charge of something that might be multi-layered, multi-jurisdictional, and something from outside forces that affected a whole lot more people. That doesn't diminish Charlie Kirk. I'm talking about Kash Patel's incompetence. He is a clown. You guys stay frosty.